Interesting thing happened at the White House. Juneteenth musical festival yesterday at the White House, and the president was there. And many people that were observing it, and you can go on Twitter and see it, they think that the president froze during that moment. I think that the president just has no rhythm and is not a part of it.
That's what Mike Lee, the senator, said.
Yeah, and I agree with the senator. And the reason why this is important is because if you've known Joe Biden, he always says that he was a part of the black church. He marched through the civil rights
movement. Joined the NAACP.
Joined the NAACP very early. And for someone that has been around black people his entire life, been in the church, dancing with them and everything, he has no rhythm at all. And I don't know about you, but the white people that I grew up with, that ate at our dinner table, that went to church with us, they could dance just as good as we could.
But you can at least clap. Anybody can clap.
Lawrence, don't overstate it.
I'm just saying.
Don't overstate white people.
Maybe I got it wrong, though, bro.
Well, right? Maybe none of the white people I grew up with could keep up with you. The president certainly is motionless as he listens to Kirk Franklin, and Kirk was
maybe
he
heard the song so much. Right.
Maybe
after a while you stop dancing.
He just didn't move. But, you know, they celebrated last night. They observed Juneteenth early, but it did give the administration the chance to talk a little bit. And Joe Biden never mentioned his political opponents by name, but you could tell who he was talking about. Listen to this from the president last night.
Be clear. They're all ghosts in new garments trying to take us back. Well, there are. Taking away your freedoms, making it harder for black people to vote or have your vote counted. Closing doors of opportunity. Attacking the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's about our present and our future. It's whether that future is the future for all of us, not just for some of us.
DEI is down 44% among corporate America. It's not Republicans. And by the way, if you want to go back into the past, and that's what he's inferring or implying, I think it's Democrats that put on the hoods and were KKK. I think it was Democrats that wanted separate but equal, wanted segregation. Do you really want to keep harking back to when your party was a little confused about what equality for all was all about, and why he keeps going back to a time in a country that he runs to paint such a brutal scenario as if it were pre-Mandela South Africa is beyond me?
Well, he just wants to, look, it's a political season. He wants to say, hey, I'm protecting you. Donald Trump is going to take your rights away. That's one of the reasons why the vice president was there. She ticked off the administration's accomplishments. We got rid of student debt. We capped the price of insulin. She went on and on. We appointed the first black female Supreme Court justice, signed in the gun law. And then the White House actually issued a fact sheet outlining measures to protect black history. All at the hands of Joe Biden.
Right, because Republicans are looking to take it away.
If you look at the polls, though, they're about 1/4 of black voters are liking Trump. His poll numbers have dropped among black voters. In October of 2020, it was Biden's. It was 79%. Now it's 72%. And the polling guru, Nate Silver, who runs 538, he's suggesting that Biden's latest approval or disapproval ratings, I should say, might be cause for him to get out of the race. He said, you know, I don't know, but it's more than fair to ask this. The approval rating for Joe Biden is now 37.4%.
He posted two things on X. He said, first of all, what's clear, in my opinion, is that Democrats would have been better served if Biden had decided a year ago not to seek a second term, which would have allowed them to have some semblance of a primary process and give voters a say among the many popular Democrats across the country. Is absolutely right. But it continues. Biden just hit a new all-time low in approval at 538. That's his polling company yesterday. Dropping out would be a big risk, but there's some threshold below which continuing to run is a bigger risk. Are we there yet? I don't know, but it's more than fair to ask. Keep in mind, Nate Silver back in February, and we talked about it here on the couch, actually, couch in the other room, said, you know what? His numbers stink, and they would be smart, the Democrats would be, to find somebody else.
So it's important to realize who Joe Biden is talking to when he makes inflammatory comments like that. He's not talking to Democrats at large. He's not even talking to Republicans. He's talking to the black and Hispanic voters that are shifting to the other direction. Yeah. And he's saying, don't you move. He said, if you're thinking about going for Donald Trump, forget about the economic success. Forget about where you may stand on the issues. You cannot move. And so I need to remind you of the fear campaign for years and years that we've done as a Democratic Party. And so this is not a president that wants to be inspirational. This is not a president that wants to say that you can do better. He's not even a president that says that I'm pushing you forward as a community. I need to remind you that the Republicans, and Brian, you laid out the history in a great way, but he said dismiss that. Don't worry about the history. You need to understand that the Republicans want to put you in chains, and if you vote for them, you're not a part of the community.
He said you ain't black.
He said it on the campaign trail the last time. Don't you dare move. So I think it's, and I predicted this.
Lawrence is like, last I checked, yes I am.
Yes, bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo. And I predicted this because ever since the Bronx rally, if you pay attention to the Democrats, the heat is turning up because you've been seeing the crowds and you've been seeing these diverse faces, and it's freaking the Democrats out because if they get half of what the polling is suggesting that in the next election, Republicans, then it's over for the Democrats. So they need them. And so they can't talk about the issue. They have to run on fear, bro.
I just think it's so irresponsible for the leader of the country to talk as if America is 1972 or 1958. It is just not the case. You're running the country. Have an inspirational message of what you'll do. Why was Barack Obama? I mean, if anyone was going to say it would be President Obama, he did not have that message. Wasn't he the vice president during that time?
Sure.
Well, in his defense, Brian, he could have forgotten which year we're in right now.
No, he seems to. Well, the speechwriter didn't, because Morehouse. Remember Morehouse?
Yeah, true.
And Charlemagne the God said that was an inspirational message that nobody wants to hear.
It's so offensive to conservatives that don't want to vote for Joe Biden, though, that might be white, that might be Hispanic, to hear we're trying to take us back. Excuse me, that Trump is trying to take us back. That's just not true. I mean, the black community knows that is so wrong, correct?
But ultimately, what they're trying to do, it's an election year. Going back to where we started, Joe Biden, is in trouble with a number of his core demographics. And that's one of the reasons why right now they're freaking out at the White House that across the river from the White House is the Commonwealth of Virginia. And right now, the latest poll we showed, it's neck and neck between Donald Trump and also Joe Biden. I think they're tied at 48 or 49%.
Three straight polls.
There it is, 48% right there. And here's the thing. Joe Biden won that pretty reliably blue state by 10 points 4 years ago. Glenn Youngkin, the current governor, was on with Sean Hannity last night and said, you know what? This state is up for grabs.
I believe it is, and that's exactly what the polls are showing us, just like Georgia and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, and Arizona. Those battleground states are seeing the exact same kind of statement that Virginians are making. They want a strong America. They want an America that has economic strength, not the Biden-generated economy that's unleashed inflation.
So it's just New Hampshire, the same thing. And I haven't seen a poll in Minnesota, but if Minnesota is also in play, my goodness, you're talking about 40 states that could be going into the former president's column. I just saw a fascinating story on Politico, the lead story, how Wall Street is now coming to the president. So Silicon Valley over the weekend, you saw what happened.
Huge event.
Yeah, David Sachs came out and said, I expected maybe 5 million. They ended up with 12 million. And then you have John Catsimatidis, the CEO of Blackstone, Stephen Schwartzman. Yeah. You have Hal Lambert of Point Bridge Capital. You have Bill Ackman, all from Citadel, Ken Griffin from Citadel, all saying in the past, you know, I had a problem after January 6th, or I voted for DeSantis, or I was supporting DeSantis. I'm in. Mm-hmm. And part of it is these court cases. Mm-hmm. And they see the way a businessman is being skewered and on manufactured charges.
And inflation.
And they're now coming.
And you know how that's affecting their bottom line, too. President Trump is meeting with 200 CEOs on Thursday for a roundtable discussion about his business plan and how you will be better off with my economy versus Joe Biden's.
You know what I worried about, though, Ainsley? When you look at the polling and you see minority voters, you see the business community, you see Republicans uniting behind the president. we still got a long way into the election. And so I worry, with the polling data being where it is and everyone being on fire, that some people may stay at home. And I just think it's important as the president, the former president, campaigns, because the Republicans already have a problem with early voting and mail-in ballots as well. And to the former president's credit, he's telling Republicans now that they need to use all measures, all tools of voting. But you don't want your side to get too excited and to say, well, it looks like it's in the bag. I'm going to stay at home.
Well, the
so
national
I worry
polls are
about
a dead
that.
heat.
Yeah.
The national poll's been a dead heat, 1 or 2 points. It's all on the margin of error. So
It's going to be close. And
July
that's why
11th will be the biggest day.
For voters under 30, it's a dead heat, 49-49.
All right, and we're going to talk a little bit about how the White House is now enlisting Hollywood to try to get those kids interested. And where are they going to advertise? TikTok.
Yeah, Robert De Niro, he doesn't seem as angry.
What's their
Sure, he's very creative.
Their PAC is called, I have it on here somewhere. What is the name of their PAC? It's called Won't Pack Down.
Won't back down.
They're all a bunch of liberal writers from like Parks
So
and
lame.
Recreation and SNL.
That's right. We won't back down. We're going to give you some news at 20 minutes after the top
What do you
of the
mean,
hour.
we?
I mean her.
I'll share them. I'll share them. Would you like to participate?
I'm going to just watch. I'll read along.
I will share them.
Come on.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.